Hey, welcome to Courageous Conversations. We're glad you're here with us today. Today, we're saying Happy Father's Day because we are celebrating fathers and we're celebrating men. So you're going to want to stay tuned. Welcome back to Courageous Conversations. Today we are talking and celebrating our men, our fathers. I wish that we had a crowd that could go wild right now because we are living in a time when I have never seen men attacked like they are these days. Fathers, and just the importance of you in our home, the value of a father, the value of a man. And today that's what we're going to be talking about. So today I've got some great friends with me, and I'm sure that you're starting to love them too. I've got Ben and Michelle Ben Corinne. How you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Doing great.
Awesome. Tell me what you do, Ben, to have a good time to get yourself laughing.
What do I do to make myself laughing?
I know what you do to make us laugh.
It doesn't take much. I just look at myself in the mirror, and that's all that
That's good.
Just keep, laughing is just a matter of not taking things too serious.
Like that.
Just take life the way it is. So.
What do you think, Michelle? What do you do to make yourself smile and laugh, keep your joy?
I hang out with him.
Yes. I was going to say, I think that's what all of us do. The man, the legend, Sean Pankalla. What do you do? It's probably being married to me.
Well, definitely being married to you is on the top. I mean, I love what Ben said. Just not taking yourself so seriously, just enjoying life, taking every moment not for granted,
Yep.
and really counting your blessings and loving it, So try not to shoulder all the burdens of life. It's in God's hands. It's not
Yep.
ours. So.
What do I like to do? I love to laugh. Anybody knows me, I have caffeine. If any of you have been around me and you want a good laugh, see Miss Carolyn on caffeine. It is quite
Frappuccino effect is powerful.
Frappuccino effect or kombucha effect. It's whatever it is. I keep all caffeine away, unless you want me to clean your house and then give you caffeine. Anyways, we are talking about the importance of men and fathers today. And so I love having these incredible men here today because, first of all, I know this man, and I get the honor of living with him every
25
day.
years.
25 years. It's been great just watching him as a father and as a man. And he has led our family well. And so, I just want to hear from them today because I think there's some men out there that need to be encouraged. And I think there's some women out there that we need to learn how we can encourage them better. So that's what today is going to be about. So tell us, honey. Tell us what...
Put me on the spot here.
I am. I'm going to start with you today.
Okay.
Tell me what makes a great father. What is a good father? What is a father?
Well, I think... I have to look to, not to be so spiritual, but I mean, you have to look to the Father in heaven, I really do as I've matured, really look at the life of Christ. And I see how, we talk about, you watch him play with the children. When I grew up, kids were to be seen and not heard. Yeah. And then you look in the Bible and here you got Jesus, playing with children, talking with children and talking about how child shall lead, and so I think, and then just walking his life. For me, it's being that example and knowing that, okay, so when I talk to my son, I talked about manhood. One of the things is that, a man, one of the things that defines a man is to take accountability for your life. I think at that moment, it doesn't, it's not drinking. It's not when you start drinking. It's not when you start having sex. It's not when you go in the military. It's not when you do some great thing in life. It's when you really start taking accountability for your own actions. And I've tried to, through the grace of God in my life, I try to exemplify that for my kids, to be an example. So I think fatherhood, first and foremost, is really being a great example. Not being afraid to share love. I love what we were listening to, Jensen Franklin, at one point. There's so many great examples, but, one of the things that changed my relationship with my father and I was, that he and I began hugging each other. My dad came from a very stoic German background. He didn't hug. He didn't show a lot of affection.
He never said he loved you.
Never said he loved me, things like that. But then there was a point, when I was 19 years old, when things broke between him and I, where the hugging started, the saying I love you started.
But you made that choice.
Yeah, I was.
You should share a little bit of that.
Oh, okay. So, I made a decision when I was 19, to go ahead and, just to let my dad know that, okay, to tell him that I loved him and to give him a hug every time I saw him for the first time, like when I came back or something. And then when I would leave, I'd say, Dad, I love you. And I gave him a hug. And then if I was on the phone, I would say the same thing. I'd say, get on the phone and say, hey, Dad, I love you. And then when I get off the phone, I said, love you, Dad, talk to you soon. And, I made a commitment to do that for a year. And I remember it was almost a year to the date. In fact, I think it was, as God would have it. I was having a really rough time with a relationship with this girl, and I was really in an emotional state. I was frustrated, and I was leaving his house one night. And I walked to the door, put my hand on the handle, and started turning the knob. And I remember thinking to myself, I just don't have the emotional capacity to sit there and tell my dad I love him and give him a hug and leave because, he hasn't really responded in a year. It'd been a year, and he hadn't responded to that. He just give him a hug, and he's just sort of stoic, I'm not going to deal with it tonight, I put my hand on that doorknob and turned that doorknob, and boy, from the background, I heard this deep, hey, where's my hug? I tell you, could bring tears to my eyes now, but I remember I sat there, it seemed like an eternity, just gripping that doorknob, staring at it, thinking, holy cow, did that really just happen? And so I turned around and I went and gave my dad a hug and told him I loved him. And, I think that did a lot for my dad too. I think it really broke him in a way that almost gave him the freedom, the okay to be that kind of man. And I think it awoke in what was already in him, but it awoke in him the ability to share love in that way. So I think first and foremost, the father is a great example, but he's got to be loving. You got to be loving. Look at our Father in heaven. I was reading a thing, read a book the other day, a powerful book on grace and mercy, and really just, and because you saw it change me over the next few days, like there was a physical change in my demeanor. Just the power of grace and mercy and the love, that Christ would have so much love in his heart to say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, while he's bleeding, while he's enduring the most excruciating pain I can't even imagine, and giving his own life up for us so that sin for all humankind in the past and in the future would be forgiven, and all we got to do is accept that. And I look at my kids and I think, boy, there are times when I get mad. There are times when I get frustrated. There are times where I'm like, you know what? This isn't right. But then I think, okay, you still have to hold that standard. They don't respect you unless you inspect things, right? People don't respect what you don't inspect, so, you still got to be dad. You still got to be that way. But to be full of grace and mercy one man once said it, and I really believe this. Salvation doesn't come through the 10 Commandments. It doesn't come through the law. I mean, you'll break yourself on the law and you'll become humbled and repentant. But salvation comes through grace and mercy and the love of Christ. Mm-hmm. And that's really your relationship with your kids will come through your love for them, your grace and mercy and your love for them. You still be dad. You still be that rock because they do need that, right? It's the yellow lines in your life. They need to know that there is safety within it. They can rail against those lines all they want. I don't care what anybody says. They need standards. They need discipline. And it gives them a sense of security and safety, knowing that they have that. But to be overbearing with that is too much. I've seen countless examples of fathers who are too demanding, are too hardcore, are too much the authoritarian with no love and grace. And that'll drive those kids away. So it's kind of a full answer for what's fatherhood, but it's kind of a full thing.
I love it. Thank you, baby. What about you, Ben? What do you think?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Sean, for making me cry without having to hurt me or hit me with your story of the doorknob. That was an incredible story. It really touched my heart. So I'm going to answer this question a little bit differently. The importance of a father to be a good one is merely the fact to acknowledge that you need to be a good father. A lot of people don't even care. They just are living being a father. They just make kids and they just not are attentive to the idea of being a good father. Because once you start with that, yes, men like us will go into their spiritual retreat to find how fellowship, on how to be attentive to, etc. I know for a fact that I was a terrible one but I knew that I wanted to be one. My instinct, due to my upbringing, I've done very, very good in certain aspects, but terrible on some others. But I was so motivated and very, very attentive to wanted to be a good father. And I've done my homework and I've tried. It's not easy, but at least I was very aware. I think the awareness of wanting to be a good father is the key.
Well, and I think that's so important because, you do see, and I think some of it is because our society is so, I remember when our kids were young, and I was in our kitchen and we had a room off, their kids' playroom was right off the kitchen. And I heard they were listening to some television and I heard them demeaning men. Like it was the woman was that and the man was just silly. He couldn't make decisions. And I stopped. I was washing dishes and I was like, kids, what are you watching? And they told me what they were watching. And I was like, oh no. And it was, if I told you what it was, I don't want to say it, but it was just a regular TV, like cartoon. And we don't know that it's the programming. I say it all the time. It's called programming for a reason. And I went to my husband. It is. And I went to my husband. I'm like, honey, we got to get this out of our house because I'm like, it is completely against everything God stands for and everything we're trying to put. And I realized then we were going to start going against society.
Sure.
And what society was trying to do. And you see it now. I'm so glad that you bring that up. It is a choice because you see men, it's so easy to become a dad, how do you even say this? It's easy to become a father, let's say, but to become a dad, to really, and I think they don't even think they're all they think is, oh, I made a baby. No, you made a life, and that life is going to matter.
Well, and again, it starts with awareness, and quite honestly, once you become aware, you really go to the right sources on finding out how to be one, because society out there, social media, etc., describe becoming a father a total different way of what a true father needs to be, and that relationship between father and kids and wife, etc. So, but I think the awareness is the most important thing, in my opinion.
Sorry, if I could add something to that, in some of the places that I've worked, with some incarcerated people and things like that, some of the employees that work there, even the ladies, have children, maybe single moms, things like that. I've heard some of them, you talk about, a non-Christian man versus a Christian man, and in all things considered, I'm talking about a healthy, well-balanced Christian man versus a non-Christian man. I have begun to hear, this is very encouraging, some of the younger ladies in their 20s or single moms have noticed the difference in what a ungodly father, baby daddy, right, is compared, how they respond compared to healthy Christian men and what they bring to the table. And you understand that's huge. Talking about a non-Christian woman, understanding where she came from, seeing the difference, beginning to struggle and battle between, wow, there really is a difference here of the baby daddies versus the one that takes responsibility and accountability for their life and then pours into the woman instead of seeing what they can get from her. You know what I mean? There's a big difference in that. So the awareness, though, what you said actually really taps directly into when I'm talking about accountability. You're talking about people going from, I don't even care, not even aware, to, no, I understand what I need to do and I'm engaged.
Right?
Ooh, I like, totally that's my word. How many times did I say that? Man, men's just got to get engaged, honey. We're not talking about putting a ring on it.
It's like Tom Cruise, in the fight in Top Gun. He's like, he freaked out. He disengaged from the fight, and everybody was falling apart. They're like, man, you need to get back in the fight. And he re-engages, and everything comes back together, know?
Well, we're really appreciating this conversation today because we're talking about the power of men, and that's what we're dealing with here at Courageous and Free. We are dealing with a bunch of girls that are dealing with a lot of pain because of decisions that have been made because sometimes of a lack of a godly man around them, a lack of a godly father that was protecting them, and then the lack of men that were using them instead of protecting them. That's what we're talking about. And so we want you to take a moment and watch this video, and we want you to prayerfully consider how you can join this fight with us. My new saying is going to be, stop getting angry and come help us make a difference. And we're rescuing these girls, but what are we rescuing them to? And that's what Courageous and Free is about, is creating a restoration community and a restoration home that we can bring these girls in and teach them their worth again, show them what it is. So take a moment and watch this video. Hi, I'm Carolyn Goad Pankalla, and I am really excited to be a part of this message that we are going to be bringing to you today. It's about education, awareness, what we can do, and how we are going to make a difference. And my slogan is, it's not okay. And we are going to be a voice to the voiceless. So come take this journey with us.
So I've been in law enforcement for over 25 years. I spent the last 13 years or so of my career fighting human trafficking because my goal was to end this atrocity. 90 to 95% of kids coming into sex trafficking are being lured in. They're being lured in by recruiting and grooming.
And so one day when I was leaving out of the gas station, that is where I locked eyes with my first trafficker. And it only took him 3 words to realize that I was his perfect victim before he started grooming me. And those 3 words was, "You are beautiful." Those are 3 words that I had never heard my entire life from people that were supposed to love you and support you and be there for you.
The grooming stage is where they're slowly being conditioned for the life that they're about to get into.
But over the next 3 weeks, he would then groom me and kind of find out everything about me. And I wish I knew all this then, but I didn't. But that's when he started to learn my family history, my background, where I came from, who loves me, who supports me.
So one of the fastest growing aspects of minor sex trafficking, or sex trafficking of minors, is what we refer to as familial trafficking. That's kids being trafficked by their own families.
Both of my parents were drug addicts and alcoholics. So my dad had a stroke when I was 9, then that left him disabled. And after that, my mom got involved with more drugs. She started doing crack. Eventually, she started prostituting herself for her drugs. And I went with her one time when I was 11, and her drug dealer offered her a $10 piece of crack for me instead of for her.
After about 3 weeks of grooming me, he asked me, did I want to go on vacation with him? And off we went to where I thought was going to be the vacation of my dreams was actually the nightmare from hell. Every thought in my mind is going off, but he reminded me with the truth. And the truth was, don't think about running because no one is going to look for you. No one cares about you. No one will even know that you're dead.
My trafficker would take me to a hotel. He would make arrangements with the staff so that he wouldn't have to stay. The staff would let people in the rooms. And I remember one time I had been there for a couple of days. The staff came in one day and they told me that my friend called, which was my trafficker, and said that I needed to walk home, which was a couple miles away. And I remember I was walking down the hall barefoot, bleeding, crying, and nobody asked any questions. If I was okay, if I needed help, they just let me walk by and leave.
We're talking about little human beings that dream of being firemen and police officers and astronauts who find themselves in the back room of a brothel.
And so you're probably all wondering, okay, well, how did you get here? How did you get here? The time when I finally got that courage again, right, to walk into that church completely broken. I remember sitting there like this, and they were in a DNA series, and they were talking about God's DNA, love, acceptance, mercy, grace, being adopted into a family, right? All these things that we know about God's love, but however, I never knew them. I just remember sitting there, weeping with my face in my hands, like I've been looking for this my whole life.
The ILO says that right now, while we're sitting here, there are 40.3 million victims of human trafficking in the world today. The only way to combat it is for every individual to become angry enough to realize that to stop this, I must be engaged.
We've got to be a part. We're asking you to join this fight with us. Alone, we can do so little, but together, we can do so much.
They need a place where they can come and just find that healing. A place where they can recover their voice. They can recover their dream. They can recover their hope. And they can recover what it truly means to be created in the image of God. So we need safe homes.
And I get chills just even saying it to you because I see the difference that it makes to pull these girls out of the situations they're in. And guys, it's not rocket science what we're gonna do. We're gonna just love them. We're gonna tell them they're worthy when they feel unworthy. We're gonna hold them when they cry. We're gonna listen to them share their traumas, but then we're gonna celebrate with them as they get their victories. People say it's a $150 billion business, Carolyn. How are we ever gonna stop it? Listen, one person at a time. They're born one at a time, they die one at a time, so we reach them one at a time.
You be the voice for the voiceless. You be the hope for the hopeless. And you be the love for those who have not experienced love in a long time.
We can't give up. We can't stop. But we need your help today to make a difference in one girl's life. Welcome back to Courageous and Free, and today we are talking about the importance of a father. And so I wanted to reach over to Michelle because I know you had a great family. Tell me, what is a father to you?
I think a father to me is somebody that is an example. It's more than just a disciplinarian, but example. Like how does your father treat your mother?
Right.
You know, because your kids are going to look at that. Your daughters are going to look at that.
Most definitely going to look at that. Yeah.
You know, how does your husband, how does the father handle controversy? How does the father deal with certain things? And I think that is probably one of the most important things.
Well, you know, I love that because I've always been raised with that whole thing that, you know, it's not caught, or it's not taught, it's caught. And I love that. I want to say that again. It's not taught. It is caught.
That's great.
Because, you know, it's that old saying, you know, your actions are speaking so loud I can't hear you. And I say this all the time. I get so tired of kids being disciplined for something that they see you doing. I want to look at the parent and go, are you going to spank yourself later? Because they learned that from you. You taught your children. Now they're acting it and you're disciplining them. Are you going to discipline yourself? And it really is so true. I think it's that father. First of all, for me, I have to say, a father brings such stability in the home. Yes. That's why I think it's so sad, and I see the world attacking men and attacking fathers so much. I think that's why the enemy's doing it. Yeah. Because any of the countries that I work at, even in our own country, wherever you take the man out of the situation or take a father out of the situation, it's the women and the children that really hurt. And so you see why the enemy is so fighting it, to make the man feel like, oh, you're not important. Your words don't have value. You know, you don't matter in the home anymore. The way you live doesn't matter. The enemy's just lying, because it does. I mean, you look at our children. They're learning how to have a relationship watching us. Right. They're learning how a man is supposed to speak watching me. Yes. They're watching where my husband's eyes go towards. I can't tell you growing up how much I watch men, that when a woman would walk in a room and I would just sit there and go, I'm going to watch what he watches. I would never say a word, and I would just watch to see what he did, because it was going to tell me where his heart was. And still to this day, I watch that. I can't help it. I'm not judging. It's just like, I want to see, because to me that says so much. Is it okay to look at other people? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying you can tell if they're looking or if they're gazing. Sure. What is their mind doing? And I think it is the value that they put on us women. It's just vital. And our kids are watching that. What are you thinking?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I'm just very interested in hear what Michelle's thinking about fatherhood and how that goes.
What comes to me most is having a daughter. Is she's whatever my husband shows towards me, she's going to look for that in a man. And so there's so many people or so many young women that have watched abusive relationships, and then they end up in abusive relationships because that's what they're familiar with. And so I think, as far as a father is concerned, it's again,
Hold on, you got to say that again, because I think somebody's watching that, and it's so important that people hear that. Is sometimes we end up in abusive relationships because that's all we've ever seen. I mean, somebody watching this today, I think that you're in a relationship and you maybe are going, something isn't right, but it's all I've ever known, but something isn't right. Here is your chance that we are telling you that's not normal, right? A man, I say this all the time, a father is a protector. I don't know about you, but I think about that. I watch my husband, and I love it because my girls will get dressed, and I love it. First of all, those girls are coming downstairs, and the first thing they want him to do is, do you see me?
Yeah. Do you notice me?
Do you notice me? Yeah. And I love my husband because he takes the time to stop, and it doesn't matter. He's like, oh, honey, you look so beautiful. Aww. Wow, those eyes, your spirit, you're just, he just dotes and dotes on my girls. And even over my son, he'll say, you are a strong young man. He uses his words. But boy, if something isn't right, he goes, I'm that protector. You get back upstairs.
How many times have I asked him, you got shorts underneath that right there?
And we say that, and then we're not meaning it judgment, but we'll watch videos of girls that are heading out to go to dances and stuff like that. In our hearts, we're not judging, we're breaking. We're like, oh God, where is the fathers that stand up and go, honey, you can't leave the house like this? And are the girls going to get upset? Oh yeah, they are. Oh yeah, they are. But we're not here to make you comfortable and make you happy. We're here to make you protected
and respected.
And how many times we tell our son all the time, we're like, you're going to have to respect women when they're not respecting themselves. And in their defense, it's because there is nothing if you're watching on radio, if you're watching on TV, if you're watching videos, if you're watching TikTok, everything is selling women in a whole different direction. But Yeah,
it's funny. Years ago, Carolyn mentioned you talk about where men look and things like that. The Bible talks about eyes being the windows of the soul, right? I mean, it just goes right to the core. Carolyn actually, one day, I don't know if you remember this, you pulled me aside one day and said, I just want to thank you. I said, well, what for? And I think you just said something like, because I notice how you respect me when we're out in public type thing. And I didn't really understand. And that's part of what we could talk about, Ben, on a different show about men not realizing their influence and not really embracing that influence as to what our role really is. But the reality that when somebody, because we can all acknowledge somebody that's attractive, whatever, but it's different than, when somebody walks into a room and, I respect my wife by just not, I'll look somewhere else. It's not an awkward thing. It's just a respect thing. It's like, you know what? I've got my beautiful thing. God's gift to me is right here, and I don't need to spend my energy anywhere else. And so for her, she was saying, I really thank you for that. I see how you respect me by not doing what most men do, and so that's a huge thing. And my girls see it too. My girls, when I'm out, I'm not around my wife, and I'm out, to the grocery store or whatever. I'm still fully man. I'm a Christian man, but I'm alive. I'm still fully man. I'm not like blind, but my girls will see how I conduct myself. My son will see that too, and that's part of that being an example. I talked about, being a fatherhood. It's just, I remember watching my father and my uncles. I remember, it's funny you said that, because even as a young man, I remember watching them. They were not Christians, so they would make comments, and I'd be like, oh, interesting, mental note. That's what men do.
And it's funny that even though you weren't raised in a Christian home, I say this all the time, it's innate in all of us that right from wrong.
I noticed it.
You noticed it, and there was something about it. I remember you even saying that when your mother and father divorced and other men would come. You weren't even raised in a Christian home, but there was something in you that wanted to protect your mother. You could feel when that man was looking at your mother.
Absolutely.
That was your mother.
Yeah.
And that was the man, the father inside you that wanted to protect. And that's why I always say, the father is the protector. I want to talk about the spiritual leader. Do you think the father, what do you think the importance of being the spiritual leader in the home?
Well, if you don't mind me just responding real quick to what you said. Yes, so not only the father is so important for him not to be absent physically, but even if he's still in the household, but absent and being a good witness and a good model, that's also at times more devastating because it's the wrong example that you are portraying. Secondly, I believe that a lot of us, even if we have been raised in a good, non-abusive relationship, we have been used to not quite understanding what loving somebody means. And I've had to learn that loving my wife is not what's in it for me, but it's how much am I willing to give up and concede for her. And so all this to say, I've had to battle my pride because that is the enemy of love. Wow. Where love trumps pride. So a lot of times, although I love my wife, but because I'm proud, I am not willing to bow, and I'm not willing to bend, and I'm not willing to do so many things. But if you realize that love trumps pride, then you are able to fight that over and really make it your main goal. And that is valid with your wife and your kids. I've experienced that with my son, where I got to the point where there is only one thing and one thing only that matters with him is to love him. Despite it all, because as fathers we want him to be the best, and sometimes we can push too hard, too much, even though we're doing it from a good heart, but the result is damaging. So we have to really, the fathers especially, because we're so protectors, we're so defenders, we're so challenging, want to have our sons and whomever, our daughters as well, to reach a certain level. We have to love a lot, and loving in the way that I described.
And I think that's really, and I'd like for you to really talk, you guys to share about that a little bit more, because there is a responsibility on you all, that father, to lead and to get your sons to be the men and to achieve and to be the caretakers and the givers. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility on you.
Passing the mantle of responsibility for the next generation, that's a big deal.
But
there's a way that it's done, and that's how I think that's something that you were just going on, as you had to change how you were speaking with your son, how you were, because being a father isn't all about, I'm gonna bang it, I'm gonna beat it into you, I'm gonna yell it into you, because that's how the world sometimes will teach. You took a whole different, and your culture was a little bit different.
Well, let me add one level of difficulty is today's society, what was acceptable in our world, in our generation, is not today.
What do you mean by that?
Well,
Explain
when
that.
you talk to your son and tell him very nicely to do something, you touch in their space and you do this. I mean, there's so many phenomenons that we didn't have to deal with before. Oh, I'm anxious. We never talked about anxiousness. We didn't label things. And today's society, due to social media, they come up with this concept and they label themselves a certain thing. So you have to be very cautious in really influence them in that way. There is no way that you can utilize the ways we were to. You would never talk to your kids ever again. So yeah, it's a very fine line, and you have to adjust. But love conquers it all. Yes. That's the key. I have miraculously, because of Michelle actually, who has really helped me making the distinction. Not that I didn't love my kids, by no means. On the contrary, I did that because I love them. But it's the way that we present it that makes a huge difference. So
yeah, it's interesting. I just had a thought. I hesitate to say it because I don't want to diverge or get lost in the weeds in this, or go on a rabbit trail. But the old saying, behind every great man is a great woman. Of course, now we move forward and say beside every great man is a great woman, because we're a team. I really believe that the God's beautiful design of man and woman being together really is that. Why did God create the woman in the first place? Because He looked at man and said, well, it's good, but it's not good. He's alone. There's something missing. And so the perfect completion was the woman being brought up to us, completing us like that perfect puzzle piece, that last piece that just fit perfect. A healthy, not perfect, but a healthy, godly woman can bring the godly man out of himself in a way that nobody on earth can do. And you women have such an amazing God-given calling to have the ability, just words spoken, a spirit that does it not, man? It draws
Absolutely.
the man right out of you.
Absolutely.
I mean, it can draw the man right out of us.
Well, I mean,
and make us more than we could even believe we could be.
Yeah, they're the only human
That's part
being
of
we
fatherhood.
are as vulnerable with, other than maybe our mother. We're not even as vulnerable with our dad, because we're always performing to our dads.
Right.
But with our wives
Trying to please
that
them.
are replacing our mothers, we are so vulnerable with them. And because of that, they see things in us that nobody else will see. And they're able to help us if they are wanting and loving as well, to draw out of us the best we possibly can work on.
Carolyn, you showed me way early on in Preston's life how to be a father to him, because you saw what he needed as a young man. She saw things.
Yep.
And she was able to talk with me and help me understand, hey, but see, I was the one that had but she couldn't fill that role, but she could help me understand, like a good coach, say, hey, this is what I see he needs, And it's like, you know what? I can do that. I can thank you for showing that to me. And that's the beauty.
It took humility, though, and I think we've done that with each other, because there's times that
It does take humility. Like he's talking about pride. You got to put love first and pride second.
And you have to put it's
pride
what we
last.
said the other day, when a family is a team, and I feel so much for women who don't have that. I mean, and
but
for
they
men,
can bring a godly man into their life. As
Yeah.
also, so I want to say, because my mom was a single mom for many years, and it's powerful. Good godly men can be a role model for single women's children.
Of course.
In the right circumstance.
well,
right?
and you're right. It doesn't take it doesn't take a blood person to be a coach or a mentor for, and that is very
And
important.
there are some incredible stepfathers that are out there that have taken on that role as to replace the absent father. And
something you said that we cannot say it enough. No matter how women are magnificent, a father is essential for the balance of
Essential.
we're not taking
Yes.
anything away from a mom,
No.
and vice versa. I mean, like, the love of a mother is there's nothing like it.
Irreplaceable.
I never woke up in the middle of the night because my son cried 3 rooms over,
Right.
but she does.
Right.
She feels him before he wakes up. We don't have that within us. So we both are essential for the growth
Well,
of our
and
kids.
I think it's so important, because I also think that men bring a strength to the home. I keep saying it so much. Do I not tell you all the time?
Stability.
There is such a stability that man brings. And I mean, even as the woman, and I'm a strong woman, but my husband will tell you,
woman of influence.
oh, there is just, man, I go tuck myself underneath his wings so much. And it's just, I had him laughing the other day. I'm like, it's like we're flying. He's like that eagle. He's got his arms way out. We're flying. And there's sometimes I'm all the way over here. I'm at the tip of that wing. I'm just flying underneath it. And then all of a sudden I'll tuck back in and I'll get it. It's just, he's so strong.
That's
and
a
so
nice picture.
it really is. And then I'll go back out, and he sets me free, because he knows that I'm always underneath his covering, and he knows that there's that commitment. But it's the same with our kids. And I say that as a father, is they might be gone. We've got them in college, and but man, they're still flying underneath his covering, underneath his wind, underneath his stability, underneath his leadership
And reputation.
and reputation. And You know, and I think that there is so much to that, you know, the stability and the safety that he brings in our home. And I'm sure it's the same with yours. That man, when they come home, or if there's a situation, there's times that my daughters, you know who they want to talk to? They want to talk to him. Here I work with girls all the time, and it was odd. I was just talking with a husband and wife team that they also have a home for girls that have been rescued from human trafficking. And, you know, I was just like, well, how does that work with your husband being there? Because, you know, we're so cautious with my husband. And he goes, you know, you're going to be surprised. I said, well, first of all, I said, you're probably never alone with him. He said, I'm never alone with him. He said, but I find that when they have situations, you know who they come to? Me. Wow. There is something in a child, in every boy and girl, that, man, there's sometimes they need that mommy's love, and we do have it. There's sometimes they need that stability of that sternness.
I don't know where I heard this, but they do say that the father relationship with the child is symbolic of your relationship with God. They are able to mimic that on how to, etc. And so there is definitely, like you said, when there's an issue and when they need to talk to that covering, it's that same representation. Yeah. So yeah, it's essential. It's very, very important.
You know, another thing that just got dropped in my mind, just real quick, I think a powerful part of being a father is you just don't act like you got it all together. I think I've seen my children grow so much. There was literally like a transition point when they got old enough to really understand, hey, mom and dad are actually real people. You know what I mean? And I'm starting to see...
They bleed.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see things that, you know, maybe they're not so perfect. You know, I embrace that. You know, I look at them and I think, you know what? Congratulations, you're seeing that I just made a mistake. And the fact that, like you said, Ben, for us to put down pride, and the loving part of us is, you know what? I'm not perfect. And grow from that, because you can be a better version of what I am. And this is how, you know, you watch dad, you watch mom work together to build a great foundation. You watch me go through and fight my struggles. You watch me battle things that are tough. You realize that life is not perfect for dad or for mom, that we too have struggles that we have to go through. And therefore, let that encourage you, because we're doing okay and you'll be okay.
But you know what they're learning from that? And this is one thing that I love, is when we go through those things, they're learning that you didn't run to anything in the world.
Right.
They're learning that dad ran back to the word. I mean, how many times? I mean, I love it. Every
morning.
That's a
decision.
It's a choice.
It really is.
It is.
I mean, let's face it, for humanity, it's a decision to follow Christ.
Right.
It's not like, well, I feel like doing that today.
Yeah.
No. This is what I'm committed to.
But I've said it to you over and over. I think the stability that you bring into home is when I know that you're up in the morning and you're reading the word.
Right.
That I know that the decisions that you're making is because you sought God first, or you prayed about it, or you'll grab us and go, let's pray. Right. I watch you in the mornings. I mean, we have a group family text, and he gets where he's in the word in the morning. He'll send us something out from the word going, here's a word for the day. Yeah. Or, you know, it's just little things that it doesn't matter where we are, we're connected, because he keeps pouring us back to the source. Because it's what you're saying is somewhere in life that you leave from being teacher, you know, disciplinarian, to coach,
to being a life friend.
Right now, I think that that's where we're moving into, is more of that coach. And so I think it's the power of them watching you
stay connected to the vine.
Stay connected to the vine. That in the midst of the struggle, it's where you run back to. It's what you run to. It's
because we're not always going to be there, right?
We're not always going to be there.
Dad, we can't always be there to help them change the tire or whatever. Well, you know, we can't always.
What would you guys say to the men that are watching out there today as our final words? Just maybe they've never had a great father. Maybe they don't know what that even looks like. What would you say to encourage the men out there?
Yeah.
Be aware that you just don't exist as a father. You become a father, and learn how to become a good one. I mean, like I said, awareness is a lot of people live through life, they don't even pay attention to that concept. But being a father and how important it is, understand the importance, and if every father understood the depth of how much influence they have on their kids, they will change everything around. They're not aware of that. They don't understand that it is so.
Yeah.
And they just blame their kid that became whatever, but they are an incredible influence, and that is something that so that's what I would probably focus on, is awareness of how important a father is.
What about you, Michelle? What would you have to say for that man that's out there from a woman's point of view? Give him some encouragement.
Yeah, I would just say watch your words. Words are so important, and the way they affect the children have an exponential and long-lasting effect. So just choose your words wisely, because that's something that you can't take back. Make them be encouraging. Make them be uplifting. Make them feel love behind it. That's what I would
That's
say.
beautiful. What about you, Sean?
Well, I would say, I'm going to tag off of what Ben said. I would say to the men, never underestimate your influence. I think Satan's lie in this world, through TV, through media, all these different outlets, is that men really are silly. They're to be displaced. They're to be shoved aside and not taken seriously. And nothing could be further from the truth. Men never, ever underestimate your influence, whether it be positive or negative. You have it, and you have to decide which road are you going to go down. You're going to be a positive influence or negative. You're not called to be perfect. You're not called to be perfect. You're looking for a manual? There's really no manual. The Bible's a manual. I mean, follow Jesus. How did Jesus love people? That's how you love your children. It's how you love your family. And I would just say that, there's some great tools out there. I know that I've done some men's groups through Dennis Rainey's programs. There's some stuff for James Dobson. Bringing Up Boys is a good book. Bringing Up Girls, things like that. There's a lot of good stuff out there. And I love what Ben said. If you will just acknowledge the fact that you have that purpose that is set before you, that you really need to step into that, you need to do that. You need to step into it. Yeah.
And for me, I think my biggest thing is I just want to say is get engaged. I say it all the time.
Engage in the fight.
I think the biggest thing I see, and it just breaks my heart, is that men make excuses all the time. They're buying into the world that, we don't really matter. So they're setting themselves aside. They're setting themselves aside. I'm saying engage back in, because you do matter. You matter. Women, I can tell you this right now, from a woman's point of view, will fight. We might fight it, but down deep in our heart, when we know that your heart is pure,
that's it, right?
We
there.
know that you are not doing it for selfish ambition, that you're doing it because, man, you are so in love with Jesus, and we got to do this, baby, because this is the word of God. I'm not perfect, but I want to do what's right. I'm willing to make the changes. I'm telling you, men, engage and step up and be the leader, because us women are begging the men. So many women are leading. They're trying to be father and mother because the men have sat down, and we're asking you, please stand back up. And if you've never had a father, if you've never seen somebody model it for you, find somebody. Get you a mentor. Get somebody that can pour back into you. But what I am telling you is stop making excuses. Stop saying you don't matter. Stop saying, I'm angry. Stop saying I've never seen it. Stop saying, none of that matters. What matters, what is important, is that you do what it takes to become the father that you always wish you had. That's what's going to change it. And where we learn that from, I love what my husband said. It's from Jesus Christ himself. So be encouraged today. You matter. You can make a difference, and you can be the father that you wished you always had. We're counting on you today. Be courageous and free. Amen. God bless you.